From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Saini Gray. In some news just coming in, the Ecuadorian Foreign Affairs Minister, María Fernanda Espinosa, has been appointed as the new chair of the United Nations General Assembly. This will be the first time a Latin American woman is chairing the body. Espinosa beat Honduran Foreign Minister María Elizabeth Flores with 128 votes. During her two-year term, the Ecuadorian Foreign Minister says she wants to promote human rights and justice, as well as the protection of migrants, refugees, and persons with disabilities. It will be the fourth time that the Assembly is chaired by a woman since its creation 7 decades ago. In Guatemala, the eruption of the Fuego volcano has killed at least 69 people and has injured 300 others. The authorities say the natural disaster has affected 2 million people and the number of missing is unknown. Rescue workers have evacuated 3,200 people from the area since the eruption on Sunday. Most of them have been relocated to shelters. Only 17 victims have been identified so far through their fingerprints and physical features. Authorities have warned the death toll could rise in the coming days. Guatemala's Institute of Seismology says no further eruptions are expected in the coming days, but heavy rain could trigger mudslides.
It is obvious that the volcano's energy decreased and its tendency is to continue decreasing. That is to say, there will be no new imminent eruption over the next few days. We expect that during the next 5 days it will rain harder, which could become a problem due to the possibility of mudslides because of all the materials from the volcano left in the ravines and rivers.
President Jimmy Morales toured the areas most affected by the disaster along with his wife. They met victims and rescue workers in the 3 worst-hit departments. Sunday's eruption was the largest in more than 4 decades, leaving villages buried under rivers of mud and lava. Thousands of hectares of coffee farms on the slopes of the volcano were covered with ash. The president said cookers, food and cots are being delivered to shelters. The National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction is also opening more shelters. And our correspondent in Guatemala, Mario Rosales, brings us more.
We are in the department of Escuintla, outside the morgue, established by the National Institute of Forensic Medicine. Dozens and dozens of families are arriving here looking for their loved ones. Bodies are being identified in this temporary morgue. So far, it has been reported that the emergency services have been able to enter one of the most difficult and affected areas. It was impossible to enter before due to the accumulation of ash and sand, as well as the extremely high temperatures. Now, the emergency services will be able to rescue bodies that will be taken to this morgue, where families have to identify their relatives, to mourn and bury them.
The first funerals of the volcano victims were held Monday in the central square of Alotenago, a municipality of the Guatemalan department of Zacatepec. 7 of the victims were buried with hundreds of people attending the ceremony. Their families adorned their coffins with yellow, white and red flowers, candles and metal crosses. The community also collected funds to help families who lost their homes and other belongings in the disaster. In Colombia, the Joint Task Force Group Hercules has confirmed the deaths of 6 men allegedly linked to the armed group Olivier Sinisterra led by El Guaucho. The military operation occurred in the department of Nariño, which is reportedly under the leadership of one of El Guaucho's close allies. Now, according to official sources, 11 rifles, 2 guns and communication material were recovered from the area. El Guaucho is wanted for the deaths of a team of journalists from Ecuador on the border. Social leaders in Mexico are stepping up their criticism of government policies and corruption in the run-up to July's presidential election. Yet many complaints are falling on deaf ears.
Teachers have taken to the streets of the capital in an attempt to show the negative consequences of the government's plan for education reform. But their protests are being stopped by security forces.
They blocked Mexico City so teachers can't enter. It's shameful to see how the government tries to keep us away instead of listening to us.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador is the only candidate that talks about abolishing the reform as part of his presidential plans. The reform affected teachers' rights and the development of a new education model.
We will get to an agreement with teachers, and we will work on a plan with the students' parents to improve the quality of education without affecting the teachers' labor rights.
Rural workers have also protested. They marched in front of the Secretariat for Social Development to ask for resources that they are being denied to them.
They haven't fulfilled the agreed compromises. They still haven't delivered the resources that they already assigned.
There are a lot of secretaries that are using resources to pay the organizations that support their parties.
According to the Electoral Institute, Ricardo Anaya, conservative candidate of the National Action Party, has spent most of his campaign, almost 10 times more than López Obrador, who leads the polls with a difference of 25 points.
Arriba la familia. Go families, go Guanajuato, go Mexico.
According to social activists, this election is a chance to end the neoliberal system that has damaged Mexican society so much.
Time now for a short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. The United States continues its diplomatic war against Venezuela. The U.S., along with 6 other countries, urged the Organization of American States, the OAS, to reject Venezuela's elections and to remove the country from the organization completely. Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Mexico, and Peru joined the United States' proposed resolution. According to U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, Venezuela is a failed state.
Today, all our nations agreed to take up the issue of Venezuela's collapse during this General Assembly. And tomorrow, we will have an opportunity to take an important step to hold the Venezuelan government accountable. The Venezuelan people deserve better than what the regime of Nicolas Maduro offers them. They deserve libertad.
However, the U.S. threats were null and void as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has already announced the country is withdrawing from the OAS. According to Maduro, the international organization has become a tool to attack progressive, independent, and anti-imperialist governments.
It is the last General Assembly in which a Venezuelan foreign minister will participate, because we denounce the OAS and we are leaving the OAS. The Ministry of Colonies, we are leaving the OAS.
And on Monday, Venezuela's foreign minister, Jorge Arreaza, also responded to U.S. threats and rejected its attempts at intervention.
The aggression against Venezuela is brutal. It's economic, financial, political, and mediatic. We are going to keep going forward, and we will triumph, because here is the historic battle between the Monroe Doctrine and the Bolivarianism. We are an independent, free, and sovereign nation, and no one will impede that the people of Venezuela fulfill its will and destiny of freedom.
Mexican Foreign Minister Luis Videgaray Caso is in the United States to attend the Organization of American States Assembly. On Tuesday, he met with U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo for a bilateral talk. The meeting comes a week after the U.S. imposed import tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum from Mexico, Canada, and the European Union. Mexico responded to Trump's metals tariff by imposing its own duties on American steel, along with targeting politically sensitive agricultural products from pork to bourbon whiskey. Ecuador and the United States are looking to strengthen bilateral relations. Denise Herrera reports from Quito.
Yes, indeed. Now we are at the government palace, where the Secretary of the State, Juan Sebastián Roldán, said that the visit of the Vice President of the United States is a new opportunity for Ecuador to face the current situation among the country. Yesterday, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, spoke with President Lenin Moreno to congratulate him on the progress Ecuador has made to uphold democracy and the rule of law. We discussed the humanitarian economic disaster in Venezuela. The U.S. is committed to democracy and prosperity across the Western Hemisphere. Also, President Lenin Moreno said on his Twitter account he received the call from the Vice President, and he said he will work together among the situation in Ecuador. Also, the U.S. Embassy said on his Twitter account they will analyze new measures to reactivate the bilateral relationship between Ecuador and the United States. So we have to wait the decision the President will take among these visits. So it's all for now. We will keep you posted with more information as soon as we can. Back to you at the studio.
Thanks, Denise, for that report. The U.S. Southern Command is about to begin its tradewinds exercise in St. Kitts and Nevis. It is supposed to help the island's security and emergency forces prepare for man-made and natural disasters. The United States recently concluded a similar exercise in Trinidad and Tobago.
This week, we will see over 500 military, law enforcement, and civilian personnel from 20 partner nations, including host country of St. Kitts and Nevis, undergo intensive training, much of which had been referenced by our own commander of the force, and of course from General Juan Pablo Ferrero of the U.S. South Command.
And in Bolivia, the government is hoping to end 2 weeks of protests by students. Now, the government also has to deal with a strike in the capital's neighboring city of El Alto.
Representatives from social organizations in El Alto attended the third session of the talks with the government. They support the demands of the state university calling for a budget increase.
We have declared that the dialogue is open. We are waiting for the community of the state university to change their position and join in this dialogue.
The university community of El Alto did not attend the meeting, however, and on Monday, with the support of social organizations, started a 48-hour strike in that city with roadblocks.
This is starting to become political, and this is not correct. This has nothing to do with the municipality of El Alto. The issue with the State University of El Alto will be resolved with them.
Social organizations in El Alto called for the demonstrators to come to the table.
We are interested in giving a solution to the problem of the public university of El Alto, and as mediators, we have heard the decision of the 5 ministers that have been present today. The dialogue is open from this moment.
After the absence of the leaders in the case of the University of El Alto, we wouldn't like to think that they don't have the intention of solving this problem.
Students, professors, and staff of the State University of El Alto that have demonstrated for more than 2 weeks say they want to negotiate directly with President Evo Morales.
And austerity policies are beginning in Costa Rica as the new government announced measures to improve the fiscal crisis affecting the country. Now public workers are preparing to fight these policies. Our correspondent in San Jose, Fernando Francia, tells us the story.
Restructuring and cuts. The government of Costa Rica has announced a series of public spending reduction measures. The current fiscal crisis in the country is affecting 6.2% of the gross domestic product.
What we are going to do is not hire more public workers. We are also suspending the wage increases that they currently enjoy. But they are not going to see a reduction in their wages.
The government has also planned its own restructuring. There will be a freeze in the wages for top officers. The annual increases in the public sector will be under $10.
We are aware of the problem, a severe fiscal crisis, but the point is that sacrifices are always asked for us. The measures go against the workers and the public sector.
The Minister of Finance also urged the Costa Rican Assembly to fight fiscal deficit by passing as soon as possible bills linked to taxes and deficit reduction.
We feel doubly affected as the government is planning new indirect taxes that will be applied to all Costa Ricans, no matter what their income is or their ability to pay these new taxes.
On average, the level of fiscal deficit between 2010 and 2016 was at 5.2% of the gross domestic product. In 2017, it reached 6.2%, the highest since the crisis of 1980. The public debt has increased from less than 25% of the GDP in 2008 to almost 50% in 2017.
In Peru, Finance Minister David Tuesta has resigned amidst anger over his controversial bill to reform the value-added tax scheme in a bid to increase the state's revenue. Tuesta was only in office for 2 months, but he will be replaced by the Agriculture Minister, Jorge Arreaza. The Peruvian government is facing opposition against its push for austerity measures. Carriers went on strike Tuesday to protest the increase in gas prices. And staying in Peru, in 2017, Peru registered alarming statistics of violence against women. According to feminist organizations, it is a consequence of the state's limited investment in preventative measures. In 2017, 65% of women between the ages of 15 and 49 reportedly suffered some form of violence at the hands of their partners. That's according to the most recent Family Health Survey. Between January and April of this year, the Ministry of Women registered 43 femicides. That's a 26% increase over the same period in 2017.
Violence in all of its forms is the most horrible expression of power. Violence against women, especially if it is perpetrated by a third partner, represents a serious public health issue.
And women in Argentina took to the streets on Monday for the 3rd anniversary of the feminist movement, Ni Una Menos, or Not One Less. Like most countries in Latin America, Argentina currently allows legalized abortion only in a few cases, including rape and risk to the mother's life. The green scarves are symbolic of their abortion fight. The movement is also fighting for an end to gender violence. The purple scarves that demonstrators wear symbolize the bruises on a woman's body after she's been beaten, raped, or murdered.
Femininity ought to be rebuilt, ought to be turned from the stereotype and really converted into what we are. We are women who struggle, women who, by being united, are going to succeed with what we want.
We also want the fear to end. that fear that every day we could be raped, or that any moment we could never return home.
Barbados celebrates the ceremonial opening of Parliament, the first under the Mayor Motley administration. In a ceremonial opening, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, MPs and senators entered the chamber to officially begin the new legislative session. The composition of the lower house changed even before today's sitting, as Joseph Atherley resigned from the BLP to become the sole opposition member in the lower house. Atherley still has to appoint a second opposition senator. The opening of Parliament comes as a delegation from the International Monetary Fund is expected to arrive in Barbados soon. Barbados has seen a sharp increase in its foreign debt in recent years, and its foreign exchange reserves are under strain. Some economists are calling on the new government to cut spending and jobs in the public sector, but Prime Minister Mayor Motley has said she wants to protect social services. On Monday, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel met with U.S. Senator Jeff Flake and the former Google chief executive Eric Schmidt. It is the highest-level U.S. delegation to arrive in Cuba since he took office. The three discussed how to improve the island's internet connectivity as it enters the digital age. Cuba has the lowest per capita internet access in the hemisphere. Google had set up a small pilot display center during the Obama administration. It also signed a deal in 2016, granting internet users quicker access to its branded content. Civilian divers on Monday morning recovered 2 of the 4 bodies which were swept out to sea by a wave at Breakers Beach on St. Vincent's southeast coast. The 3 children and 2 adults disappeared underwater sometime on Sunday afternoon. The bodies of the 10-year-old and 13-year-old were found. Another 10-year-old and 29-year-old are still missing. Residents say along with the rough waves and strong rip current, which are common on this beach, there's also a large undergrowth of seaweed on the seafloor. Swimming is not advised on Breakers Beach, and there's no information as to how the 4 victims ended up in the water. And Dominica is dealing with an infestation of Sargassum seaweed in its waters. This video shows Marigot Bay in Dominica, with the water covered by a layer of thick brown Sargassum seaweed. This has been a recurring problem throughout the Caribbean since 2011. It can cause problems for marine life, including sea turtles, and it has also been known to affect ship engines. And of course, it is aesthetically unappealing and can emit a foul stench, and therefore, it has negatively affected the Caribbean tourism industry. Indigenous women from Bolivia and Peru have united to keep the environs of the Lake Titicaca clean and help reduce the lake's contamination. By collecting cans, plastic bottles and bags, the group hopes to set an example for other local residents and tourists who leave tons of garbage by the lake every year. Titicaca is the largest freshwater lake in South America, and it is considered sacred by the local Amira people. But trash is contaminating it. In the dry season, when the water level is low, the scale of the disaster is way more evident. These Indigenous women hope to raise awareness about the devastating effects of pollution in the area. International news now. In Spain, former Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has resigned as leader of the Popular Party after losing power in a no-confidence vote last week linked to cases of corruption within his party.
Now I think the time has come to put an end to this stage. The Popular Party should continue to move forward and to build its history of service to the Spanish people under the leadership of another person.
Now let's have a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
The European Union will be discussing a regulation on migration to be implemented across the member nations. EU Commissioner for Migration has said that Europe is going through a difficult political time and countries need to be better prepared to face migrants' arrival.
Migration will be part of our life for the years to come, so we have to be better prepared. It is the moment to take our responsibilities, to share our responsibilities, and to show solidarity, not only between us, but also towards these desperate people.
Thousands of Jordanians continue to protest near the Prime Minister's office in Amman over new income tax law despite the resignation of the Prime Minister. King Abdullah appointed Omar al-Razaz, a former World Bank economist, to form the new government following the country's largest protests in years. Public anger has grown over IMF-driven steep general sales tax hikes and the abolition of subsidies. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj in Pretoria. The visit is focused on enhancing engagement between the three nations and also improving cooperation in areas of skill development, agriculture and information.
50 Latin American cartoonists are paying tribute to indigenous people in an itinerant exhibition currently placed in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires. Taco de Ojos, Latinos Tunes, recreates the stories of indigenous people in an attempt to reclaim their culture. After being showed in Peru, Mexico and Argentina, the exhibition will move to Ecuador's capital, Quito. And that brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesiatv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sony Gray. Thank you so much for watching.